Okay, so welcome to the channel. So this is the continuation for the Google Digital Leader certification. So this is an entry-level Google Cloud certification that helps you get started with cloud. So if you're done with this, the next thing you can now do is to start preparing for your Google Data Engineer Associate certification, right? So I'm going to give a guide on the channel in the coming weeks. So don't forget to subscribe. And if you have questions, you can ask in the chat. Or if you're attending any of our training, either a physical training, a remote training, or any of our mentorship program, you could ask a question. Now you're going to get a reply. So we've looked at about 10 questions in the Google Digital Leader Certification Exam Prep. Then we're going to continue and we're going to go at a much smarter and faster pace. Now, if you missed the first 10 questions, you can check the channel or check the playlist. You're going to see the content. Now, let's move to question 11. What's the main benefit of Google Cloud Serverless Service? Now, anytime you hear the word serverless service, now I've explained what a server is. So a server is that PC, is that computer that provides services, right? That provides services. So the services can be database, it can be network, it can be software, it can be anything. You can even just have a server and its purpose is just to provide timing, right? Timing for other PCs or other services that's on its own network. Now, but when you say serverless, it actually doesn't mean that you're not going to have all of those database, network, software, compute that's like RAM, right? Hard disks. It doesn't mean you're not going to have all of that. It just means that it's going to be automatically managed for you. You are not going to be involved in like setting up that up. So that's what you call serverless computing. So instead of you wanting to, let's say you're a web developer, or let's say you are a business analyst, right? Or let's say you're a data analyst. So I'm just trying to use different case study. Or let's say you're an AI engineer. You know, if you are to perform each of these functions in the cloud, you need to first purchase a virtual machine, install the software you're going to need for your job, then you now start working. So you go to, in GCP, for instance, you can go to virtual machines, right? You set up your virtual machine, you select what operating system you want, whether you want Linux, whether you want, what's it called? Whether you want a Windows server, or whether you want whatever kind of server that you need, you set that up, then you can now install the software that you need on that particular system in the cloud. Then before you can now start doing your business analysis, or you start deploying your softwares, or you start making your softwares, or you start analyzing your data, or start doing the machine learning. But when we say serverless, what we just mean is to say, let us not go through all of this stuff. Let it just be a particular service that if I'm a machine learning engineer, I just click on it and it takes care of all the underlying infrastructure for me. So that's what you call serverless computing. Okay, so, and the main benefit is it automatically manage all of those infrastructure for you. It's not really about cost, it doesn't increase the manual workload, so it reduces that. So if you see a question that have to do with options that you don't want a lot of overhead, so your best bet is going to be using any of the serverless services that you see there as option. And the next one is Anthos. So what does Anthos do for you? So it's going to help you enable hybrid and multi-cloud management. So that's the function of Anthos. You can look it up. So it's not email services, it's not Kubernetes, it's not relational database. So the answer there is hybrid, right? Anthos allow consistent operations across on-premise. So let's say you have your on-premise data center, or let's say you are going to be using AWS, GCP, any of all the different services, and you want to do that management, Anthos can help you do that. So the main advantage of using Google Cloud Functions, I've already explained what a function is that it will help you execute event-driven applications, right? Event-driven applications. Why did I say that? Now, because a function is that script, yes, I can call it a script, lines of code that will help you achieve a particular thing. Just like when you say, I'm going for a business function, it means that you're going to go do something. When you say, okay, I'm going for I have a function, it then means that there's some set of activities or rules that is being assigned to you. So that's how it is. And most of the times it is time driven. And most of the times it is event driven. So that's what you call a cloud function. Let's say you want some scripts to help you save all the files on a database or save all the files on a file storage systems or service. Or let's say you want a function to help you send an email using another GCP service when something happens, right? So that's why you call it event-driven. And once that happens, you're not going to be managing all of the underlying infrastructure, things like the email service, things like the monitoring service, all of those things, you don't need to manage that. It's going to take care of that for you. I've talked about digital transformation. I explained that quite a lot. And one of the key components is going to be that it's going to help you automate processes. Don't forget, when I was explaining the different business processes, I talked about you being able to like digitize things. You being able, imagine instead of you collecting manual cash payments, you want to now do e-payments. Imagine you, instead of people submitting CVs manually, you screen the documents for recruitment. You now have a form on the website, maybe deployed to the cloud. As simple as Google Form is a cloud service, right? So you just deploy that form, it collects all the services or data for you. If you have a recruitment software that you've built, it's going to piggyback on that form that people are filling and now going to make decision or recommendation or who should we recruit. So that way you're automating it, you're improving efficiency, is going to cost you less on the long run. Then the next question here is, which Google Tools service enables us for real-time communication? Now, don't forget, cloud is going to help us better deliver service. And Google have quite a lot of services. They have the Google Workspace, and you have Docs, you have Google Meet, you have Drive, you have Sheets. Docs is going to help you create documents, right? Normal things like a document, a letter, an informational kind of content. Then for Meet, is going to help you for real-time meetings, right? Google Meet is compared to Zoom. It's also compared to Skype. I think I just learned of recent, Microsoft wants to do away with Skype, right? Now, of course, because they have Teams. So if they have Teams, they've acquired Skype. So why should they still be dealing with Skype? So the next question here is primary benefit of Google Cloud's compute engine. When we say compute engine is virtual machines, right? Compute engines provides virtual machines for you, right? So they provide virtual machine for you. And for storage, Google has its own storage service. So this is not too much of a benefit. The real core function of Google Cloud Compute Engine is going to be this my service. On the channel, I'm going to be doing some Google Labs. I have them in their hundreds. So if you're not subscribed, make sure you subscribe. In the coming series, when we start looking at the data engineering track, the security track, when we start looking at the workspace track, Google have quite a lot of certifications. There are sufficient labs, so we're going to be walking through them. So this is to make you have a firm understanding of the cloud and so that you can better scale your skills. Now, a key benefit of Google Cloud Spanner, I talked about that. It's for global scalable relational database. I looked at that when I was looking at the slides, the content. So it's not a memory database. It's not single region, right? If it's, let's say, Google Cloud, let's say SQL, or let's say any of the other services, then we can say they can be okay for single region. And when we say single region, what do we mean? Google have its data centers spread across the world, in the US, in the UK, in Brazil, in South Africa. They just launched the one for South Africa just recently. I attended the webinar. Then you have the one for in Asia. You have quite a lot of data centers. Now, okay, let me explain it this way. So you have regions. Let's say this is the map of the world. I hope I draw this well. So this is the map of the world. Hope my diagram is nice. So this is Russia. This is those islands. So this is South Africa, South America, North America, Alaska, Africa, right? Europe, UK, Russia, Asia, India, China, right? Then Australia. So this is the map of the world. So Google has different regions, right? So they can have a region, they can have a region, they can have a region, they have a region here, 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 they have a region. Now, each of these regions, right, they are going to have more than one data centers, right? Now, if you need to deploy anything that is going to be globally scalable, then you want to use Cloud Spanner, right? So it's very straightforward. Then the next question is, which service helps organization migrate virtual machines to Google Cloud, right? Migrate virtual machines to Google Cloud. So Google Migrates for Compute Engine can help you do that. It's not Kubernetes, so this is for container service. It's not BigQuery, so this is for analytics. It's not Cloud Functions. This is to help you deploy event-driven systems. So the answer to this is B, autoscaler. So what does autoscaler do, right? Adjust. So that's the word. Adjust compute resources based on demand. I've already explained horizontal and vertical scaling in the first series of the tutorial. So you understand what we mean by horizontal scaling, vertical scaling. So that's what autoscaler does for you. Not necessarily does it reduce cost. Not necessarily does it increase network latency. No. Or manage database. No, the actual function is to automatically adjust compute resources based on demand. Don't forget to watch the first 10 parts of this series. I actually did a lot of explanation, and that's actually going to help you understand the other concepts as we go through the questions. Now, the question is, how does Google Cloud Storage ensure data availability? So how does the cloud storage ensure data availability? Let's look at them. Store data in single location? No. We want it in multiple locations. Use automatic replication across regions. We are considering this answer. Requires manual backups? No. Uses on-premise. So answer is going to be B. So we're talking about data availability. We want to ensure that our data is available, right? If something happens to one data center or one region, that data is still available. So one way it does that is to replicate your data across multiple regions. Now, cloud services that helps manage API securely. So it's RPG API management. If you read the history of Google Cloud, even AWS and other service providers, they will normally acquire companies over time. So RPG, it's an acquired company that now does API management. So that's how you can actually manage APIs securely, not Cloud Run. Cloud Run is like the inline system that can help you run your commands, right? If you need to like deploy drives, deploy compute services, run some commands, Cloud Run is going to help you do that. I've already explained Cloud Functions. I've explained also Cloud SQL. So for API management, RPG does that. So it provides security, provides analytics, provides versioning, right? You can have the version 1 of an API. What's an API? An API is For those of us that are new to programming, if I have, so this is you and I, so we're just at a restaurant, we have our tables. This is a waiter. So this is the kitchen, right? So this is the service point, service decks. Now, this waiter is like the API. It will help me and you to connect to the food bank. So it's called application programmable interface. The keyword here is interface. It's just like a telephone line, right? Right? And this is you. This is me, right? So if you call, it provides that interface for communication between this and this, right? So if you create a software, and this software is going to be based on what you have here, you need an API. And the beauty is that somebody else can create another software. Somebody else can create another software. Somebody else can create another software, right? Somebody can create an IoT device. All of these guys can piggyback on this API so that they can have access to this data. So that's what you call an API. Set of codes, set of functions, set of script, set of items that will help communication between one item and the other. So in terms of security, we need to make sure that it's secured so that people cannot, imagine you don't have, let's say this software now, let's say we are purchasing something from here and your wallet say you just have $10. How do we make sure that you don't get more than 10 here, right? So that's security. Analytics, can we see data about what is happening between point A and point B, right? That's analytics. Then another thing is versioning. So this API, we might say, okay, tomorrow we want to attend to something else. We want to be able to provide more features. So we're going to have version 1, we're going to have version 2, we're going to have version 3, we're going to have version 4, maybe version 4.1, 4.2. If the changes is not much, then once we are going to do a major update, we can make it version 5. So that's what an API and that's what a PG does for you. So what is the primary function of Google Cloud Operations Suite? So it does monitoring, logging, alerting. So that's the job of that particular tool, right? Monitoring, logging, alerting. What's Google's recommended best practice for disaster recovery, right? So I talked about regions, multi-regions. Now, one way it's just like you have an access key to a house. What's one way you can ensure that if something happens to one key, that you can still have access to that particular door? Is to have multiple keys. That's why keys, they make them in pairs. Backups. Organizations do backup from time to time. And you don't back up just in one location. You can back up in another location so that you ensure that if a disaster happens, you can actually recover. So identity, I've talked about identity earlier on in the first series. It's about identity and access management. So how do we ensure who is to manage, which user is that, what apps do they have access to, and what device can they use to access that? That's why, for instance, your Google services, you want to access it from another device, your Facebook, your Twitter, all of those services, they perform some form of identity and access management. Because one thing is to identify somebody, another thing is to be able to provide that person access and also account for it. So what's the key advantage of Google's cloud AI and ML tools? Understand that the good reason is because pre-trained model and scalable AI infrastructure. So that's what they do for you. Not necessarily are you going to have no need for coding. Yes, you have AI capabilities. They're not just only for developers. You also have no code kind of AI systems. They don't have just small data sets. Some of them have millions of data sets. The real reason and key advantage is because they already have pre-trained models. Right? Please check out the video on the channel that explains data analytics, machine learning, AI, and also starting up a career in data analytics. I think I did justice to most of these concepts about AI. So I've talked about BigQuery. So understand that BigQuery is for real-time data analysis. If you're on YouTube severally, you see Google will normally advertise BigQuery, data analytics, and all of that. So that's Google's own service. So if you're a data analyst and you have passion for data analytics, and you can do stuff in Power BI, you can do stuff in SPSS, in R, in Python, in SQL, right? In Tableau. You can use all of these tools, right? I use them. Now, if you want to now start, because all of these are on-premise, you can use Excel. All of these are what? On-prem. They are all what? On-prem. What about if you need to now move these things, you want to now take the skills you have and now be able to deploy, because you see, most of these things are going to have limits in terms of rows of data, limits, scalability, collaboration. So there's going to be a lot of limit with respect to these things I just mentioned. So, but once you are doing things in the cloud, you're talking about enterprise. You're talking about billions. You're talking about petabytes of data. You can do quite a lot. So if you have this skill set, you can come into the cloud and now start becoming